Hi, it's Jim Dew. I'm a wealth expert with 28 years of experience, and I want to help you answer the question, at what point should you downsize your business? Because there are times where, whether because of something you did or didn't do, or just the circumstances, it might be the smartest thing to downsize your business. And when you're doing that, here are some things you should think about. What are the key indicators or the signs that indicate it's time to think about downsizing your business? There's really a couple of areas you want to think about when you're considering downsizing your business. The first has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the trends of the industry that you're in, or the products or the services that you sell. If you're in a trend that's down and is going to be down for a long time, that's a time you need to consider downsizing your business, and it might be a time to start different products and services or go a different direction. I'll give you one example. Blockbuster. Blockbuster was a brick and mortar establishment where you would physically go down and pick out your video to take home and watch. Well, when streaming took over, that business was obsolete. But this was a trend that didn't happen overnight. It happened over a number of years, but Blockbuster didn't pay attention. They should have downsized their business and gone a different direction years before they collapsed and before Netflix ate their lunch. So one thing is, pay attention to the trends, both what your customers and your clients want, and based on the industry you're in and where it's headed. The second thing is really going on with you. This has to do with you and your business. And if your business is struggling, your revenues are slowing, your profit margins are getting squeezed, you want to know, why is that happening? And sometimes it might be a short period of time where you need to downsize to reset to then grow in the future. Or it might be a time to downsize and readjust, change your message, change your product, change your service. But those are the two times when you want to think about downsizing. When you're on a trend line that's going to be down for a long time, or when your finances are hurting, your sales aren't happening, your revenue is dropping, your margins are getting squeezed. That's a time to consider downsizing. What are the cost savings that are available when you're thinking about downsizing, and how can you maximize those? When it comes to downsizing, you want to look at what are the biggest items that are really causing a problem within your company. So let's say it's people, let's say it's employees. Can you in some way replace some employees with, whether it's a virtual assistant from another country? Or can you create systems and processes or use software to eliminate some positions? Because people are usually the most expensive thing in a lot of companies. So thinking about how you can get more efficient with those employees, how you can get them to be more effective, how can you replace employees with technology or with lower cost alternatives? That's a huge part of how you can save money and reduce costs when you downsize. The other thing is, what about all your supplies? What about all the costs of running your business? Can you change from a brick and mortar office to a virtual office? Can you reduce some of the costs it takes to deliver your service or your product? By doing that, you can also save and reduce your costs. So being really smart in that area. And then also, are you using your company as your personal piggy bank? Because you might think that you're having trouble financially, but it's just because you're spending too much money on your personal stuff outside your business. Make sure you keep your books and records clean so that you can identify where you can save the costs and where you can get great benefit by downsizing. How can you assess financially whether your business is in a position where it needs to be downsized? Well, really, it depends on a few things. It depends on your business and what you know it has done historically and what you know it can do. So if all of a sudden you notice that you're not growing revenue each year, your profit margins are getting squeezed, that's a big signal that maybe you need to consider downsizing. It's also good to know what your competitors, what their revenue, what their sales, what their profit margins look like. So any kind of research you can do to understand what's happening with other companies like yours, that's critically important. So for example, if you're in the mortgage industry, refis have disappeared because interest rates have gone up so much, no one is refining their mortgage. So you may be struggling in your mortgage company, but if you look at other mortgage companies, they're struggling too. So you might think about downsizing to get through the high interest rate environment so that when interest rates start to come down, then you'll get the refi business again. So look at your industry, your competitors, and also understand within your company, are you the most efficient and effective that you can be? Because one thing you don't want to do is downsize and stop spending money on the things that matter most. So if you cut your marketing and sales budget, and that's the key to revenue and profits, that would be the last place I would cut. I would rather cut operational things, things that don't add value to your customer or to your client and don't help you get the word out and don't help you close sales. There are risks to downsizing. How can you mitigate those risks so you have a better outcome? Well, the first thing you need to do is make sure that any change you make in downsizing doesn't have a dramatic impact on your customer or your client experience, because the value they see in your product or service is why they keep buying from you. So you want to make sure that you maintain the value provided to your customer and your client. And you also want to make sure if you're cutting expenses, are those things you can quickly turn back on if you need them in the future, or are they hard to restart? So for example, if you have a manufacturing business and you close down a manufacturing plant, what if it takes you a year or two to turn that plant back on to get it again producing your product? Well, you'd want to be very careful about shutting down a plant if it takes 2 years to get you back online. On the other hand, if it's something about spending less on certain paid ads for a while until the business gets running efficiently and effectively again, then maybe you can cut that out and you know that you can turn on those paid ads within a few days. So think about how long, once you shut something down, it takes to start it back up again, and then how necessary is it to getting to your goal, your outcome of profitability. Because sometimes as entrepreneurs, we think that something matters more than it really does. And that's why understanding your customer or your client and knowing what they care most about is really important. Because maybe you have a benefit or a service you're providing that they don't care that much about, that you could easily cut away and still keep your pricing and they wouldn't care much. Or maybe there's something else you could add that doesn't cost as much money, that would add more benefit in the view of the consumer, in the view of your client, so that they're going to want to buy more from you. So think about increasing the value while decreasing the cost. Think about how long, when you cut costs, does it take for you to put that cost back in. And sometimes you'll find when you downsize that things you cut out you thought you needed, but you realize you didn't need at all. And that way you create a more efficient company for the future. You might be wondering, how do you communicate downsizing to the important people who impact the business? And I mean your stakeholders, your employees, your customers or your clients, your family or your spouse. I believe transparency is one of the most important values. So I think being upfront and telling them, here's what we're changing, here's why we're changing it, and here's what we see the outcome's going to be in a year or 2 or 3 years. That way you get them on board believing in what you're doing and why you're doing it. Often I see companies downsize and they try to pretend that it's not happening. And what happens is once the customer or the client sees that or feels that and feels like you're hiding that from them, then they're more likely to think you're going to collapse and they're going to want to get out or stop purchasing from you in the first place. So make sure you're communicating to all the people involved why this is going to be good for the company and why this is going to be good for them. When it comes to downsizing, unfortunately, there are times in your entrepreneurial life as a business owner that downsizing is the right decision. And trying to pretend it's not and just gut through in a way that's not smart, that wastes money, that limits your potential and your growth, it's better to become real and to downsize, knowing that that will get you in a better position to have a better, stronger company in the future. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.